Good evening. Welcome to the weekly Football Manager show. I hope you are all well this evening. It is the 30th of the 12th on the day we are recording this. That means it's almost 2016. This is episode 51, which means the first episode of 2016 will be our 52nd episode, which is exciting. Good evening, Colin, as always, sir.
Good evening.
Hope you are well today.
Yeah, a little fogged in here, but otherwise doing really well.
Fantastic. And we have a special guest this evening, replacing Ryan till he gets his microphone fixed. We have Jonathan, but he will not be known for Jonathan. You are known for creating a legend, sir.
I had some help from Sports Interactive to create him, in all fairness, but yeah. But the man behind Avicii struck.
I don't think maybe they knew what they were doing when they created such a legend.
Yeah, they helped build a monster.
I think it definitely shot you to fame, we can say.
Definitely, I think he certainly helped out a bit.
But I mean, it's in Football Manager 2013, am I correct?
It is a very, very long FM13 save that's still going on, even though Avicii's retired. I'm in 2052, so a long one.
It's impressive. I mean, people who aren't too sure maybe with the Avicii struck, he came into your life in 2020 in Football Manager. Can you just? I mean, it kind of leads on to one of the topics I wanted to talk about tonight. Signing and finding Regens or Nugents or whatever we call them these days. How did you come across him?
Because at Celtic, they've got loads of money anyway because they win the league every year. So the scouting network that I had and the number of scouts I could employ was really big. And all I did was just send them off around the world. And I needed a new striker desperately because there's only so much that Georgios Samaras can do in real life and in Football Manager. And I think I had Mabido Maiga, the guy that I think he's still at West Ham, but he's out on loan. I had him as well, and they were both, they were good in the Scottish Premier League because I think I could score at least 15 goals in the Scottish Premier League. But I needed another striker, so I sort of narrowed my searches down, and then one guy came back with that report, and when he's 5-star potential, I think you have to have a closer look. So I had a closer look, and you get the little report that says how much you'll have to pay, and when that was £5 million, even for an 18-year-old, I think it was worth the gamble, and it paid off pretty much straight away. And then for the next 20 seasons, it carried on paying off all the way until Avicii turned 40 and retired.
I mean, I think what you did in terms of what you put together for Avicii struck it's incredible. It's something we all kind of think, do you know what, I really want to do this, but don't actually do. And I think surely the reaction from the community and from outside the community, people wanting to write about it or talk about it or just kind of discuss how and why you did this, it must have kind of blew you away at the point.
Yeah, I think it is something like I've been playing Football Manager from when it was Championship Manager, from Championship Manager when it was on the Atari, just before Championship Manager Italia was released. So I've been playing it a really long time, and like in my teenage years, you would want to do those things with your Football Manager save, where you wanted to get shirts printed for players that didn't play for your team, and you'd want to go and watch teams in different countries that you'd come across on Football Manager. And now I'm getting older, I have a bit more money to actually do those things, and I sort of haven't grown up in a way. And when the opportunity came to do them, so get the shirt printed, to produce a testimonial program, then I just couldn't resist and just jumped at the chance. And then thankfully there is a whole community of people out there that sort of understand that obsessive nature of Football Manager and Regens and all that sort of thing, that really got on board with it and sort of helped promote it further and made it all worthwhile. And sort of, I think people see a lot of what they want to do, like you say, in what I ended up doing. And yeah, the reaction's always been really good. And there's people that maybe don't understand it, but I think it sort of sometimes makes people want to understand it a bit more. And yeah, they do in the end. So it's been a really good reaction from a majority of people that have come across it.
I think it's safe to say, and Colin will agree, the people who don't understand it or kind of question it, they're obviously just not very cool.
Yeah. No, I
Go
think
on, Colin.
half of it is sort of the lure of a football manager, right? Is you're out there, you're playing, and okay, fine. So you're at a club that you love, or you're chasing something there. But so much of it for so many people is finding, that guy, that diamond in the rough that, like you said, 20 years later, was this absolute steal and became this incredible, player. And while he's just, mythic in nature, has this huge life around him that, you help create and find and imagine. And, I think that's so much of it. And I know in my series right now, I'm so looking for that guy.
Um, I don't think I've got that guy because obviously I'm making my way up the leagues with FC United. But then people will have followed Bram Ellison in my series, and he came through the youth academies at 160 appearances now. And he's like 20 still, so he's got a few years left, and hopefully he's going to start racking up the caps. But back to Avicii, it's I mean, when I knew you were going to come on, I thought I'm going to have to kind of refresh. I'd heard about it, I'd read the stories, I'd like seen the tweets, the posts, etc. But when you kind of need to refresh yourself on it, and actually came across one of the most interesting interviews with a football I think I've ever read. And I think it's the fact that in the back of your mind you sat there thinking, this guy is a creation of somebody's imagination, yours, Jonathan. But I was reading the interview, and by the end of it, I'm like, oh my god, what a career this footballer had. And it was on Backpage Football. I don't know if you remember doing that.
Yeah, I'd wanted to do an interview as a feature for a while, and someone I know called Charlie, who helps write for Backpage Football, came to me and said, "Do you want to do it?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, of course." And then it's really trying to get into that persona, because obviously Football Manager Regens don't have a personality. They might have a bit in game, they don't turn up for training, they do a bit this and that. But the whole thing of developing it yourself really appealed. And then so Charlie fired across the questions, and I just put on maybe what would Zlatan Ibrahimovic say in this interview? What would Cristiano Ronaldo say? The really arrogant, footballers that have this big personality that have achieved so much in real football. And it was just a case of taking that on and running with it. And it was a lot of fun to do. And I don't think I'm a particularly arrogant person, but just to take on that persona for that interview was a lot of fun.
Yes, definitely. I mean, I did a story on the website which was the same type of thing last year in FM15, where you kind of got to put yourself in a different mindset and kind of write or speak in a way you wouldn't normally do it, and it is fun. So, I mean, you've done a lot of things with it. You raised some money for charity as well.
Yeah. The starting point for Avicii becoming more of a personality outside Football Manager was when my brother passed away. He just over a year ago he took his own life, and in the meantime of when all that was happening, and there's just nothing to do, I just hammered Football Manager so much. And yeah, that's basically when I escaped into that world. And when the opportunity came up to sort of use Avicii to raise money and awareness for a charity called Calm, who are a suicide prevention and awareness charity, and they offer a phone line for people to ring up and talk to, I just leapt at it. And yeah, the testimonial program was just produced and sold to raise money for that, and that raised £500. And like any interviews that I've done with Avicii or stuff I've written, because I've written for Vice and I've written for Bleacher Report and stuff like that, and yeah, the money from that went to them as well. So it's sort of been a worthwhile cause as well as just sort of passing time and messing about with it. So yeah, it's been really helpful, really worthwhile in that sort of aspect of things as well.
I think it's fantastic what you've done there for charity, and obviously you've gone through something nobody wants to go through, and our sympathies are with you for that. But as you said, you've turned that into something where you've helped charity, which is fantastic. And the link for the charity will be in the description and in the information bar if you're listening on iTunes or SoundCloud. So obviously give them a check out if you can, please, people. But going onto the save, obviously you had a Avicii, but you also had a whole club at Celtic, and you're still playing that now. So what's the driving motivation now he's retired and he's now in the woods shooting moose?
Well, there comes a point where you think in any Football Manager save, it's like, well, what's the end game? And in this one, it was maybe to win a Champions League with Celtic, because they're a big club, and it's reasonably easy to do because they just win the titles, rack up the money, that sort of thing. But then once you've won one, you want to win another. And then when Avicii came along, it was like, I want to see how far this can go. And then when he retired, I had another regen who might be slightly better than Avicii was, but he wouldn't want me to say that. And then it's seeing how far he can go, and then there's this temptation that I really want an international job, ideally the England job, and try and win a World Cup just to cement it all. But it's sort of at the same time I want to win 11 Champions League titles with Celtic to overtake Real Madrid. Is still on 10. They've not won another one for a long time. So I sort of want to win that 11th Champions League, then get the England job, win the World Cup, and then maybe then call it quits. But
maybe then buy the new Football Manager.
Well, yeah, maybe play a different version of the game.
The question is then, I think, I know it's on the tip of Colin's tongue, is a good friend of ours and a friend of mine as well as second yellow card, and he likes to name his new series as manager after a previous player from a previous series. So when you finally buy the new Football Manager, will you be naming your manager Reach Stroke?
I have got Football Manager 2016, and I did start a game with it as NK Zagreb, which are the second team in Zagreb after Dinamo, and the intention was to sort of, because that's the club Avicii Stroke started at, it was to try and bring another regen through their academy and see what I could do. But the temptation to just jump back to somewhere where you're already successful and have already built up a legacy on a previous edition was too much, and the sort of the NK Zagreb FM16 save has gone into hibernation for now.
It's I understand the feeling where you're doing so fantastic on previous one, you just want to keep dropping back to it. But there will be a time where hopefully we get to see Avicii Stroke enter management. Maybe it's a new journey, a new part of the story. A tweet comes out early next year that he's took a managerial job in FM16. I'll await for the thank you for the idea. Definitely something to think about. But I suppose I want to. You've kind of led on to it there, where the reason why you haven't moved over, because some people do struggle to move on to the new versions. You're saying it's mainly due to the fact that you're attached to the series, not due to you not liking the new version.
I think I have played a bit. Like I just recently started a new save with AFC Filed, which you'll know about if you're running with them. FC United, they start AFC Filed. They start in the same division, the Vanarama North. So I started a save with them, and I'm a few games into that season, so we'll see how that goes. But the new games, the one thing that I've struggled with is the new scouting system, which came in FM15, where you get sort of the integers of stats, and then the more you scout them, the closer it gets to the actual
Okay.
stat. And that's the one thing that I've really struggled to adapt to. That's sort of a barrier between just sort of really committing to something on the new Football Manager. But apart from that, like, everything else is brilliant, and just the pull of being really successful at Celtic is all that's really stopping me.
Just keeps dragging you back in. I must admit, I don't know about yourself, Colin, but I'm kind of the opposite. I actually like the new scouting where you've got to continuously scout to get all the information. One thing I don't like, and I think I've mentioned it before, is the circles on the scouting screen. The fact you can hover over them to find out what each one means, but if you get a scout and on your news screen it comes up, unless you go actually into it to read all of them, you've basically got to be psychic to kind of understand what all of them mean, because they all just random pictures. I don't think anybody could. If I held them pictures up on a test, I don't think anyone could tell me what everyone meant.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a little hit or miss. I enjoy that scouting has become more realistic in the game, and that there's more sort of vagaries and questions around players, and you kind of have to gamble to some degree or another. You know, you're only going to know so much, and you have to gamble or not. So I kind of like that aspect. The other side of it is it drives me nuts, because at some point you know, when you finally get a system and you're working things and you really want to you know, plug the right guy in there, and having so many questions as to what's the right guy to plug in can kind of make you mental.
I think one thing I do like about scouting is how bad your scouts are. One of my scouts recommended a player. He said he's going to be awesome. He's basically League 2 standard, and I was in the Conference Premier at the time, so I brought him in. So excited to just put him into the side, and then after he arrives, basically the exact same scout goes, actually, do you know what? This guy's shit. And I just went, okay. And people who follow my series know I don't sign people unless my scouts have scouted them. I try to make it as realistic as I can, and I hope people enjoy that. I know a lot of people who listen to the podcasts are watching the series as well. I try to do that as much as I can. I think it's 99%, and the other 1% are probably people who are bringing on trial, then end up signing myself after I've watched them in pre-season. But yeah, I'm kind of lucky now where I've improved my scouting, but there are points where your scouts bring people in and you just kind of look at them and go, what were you thinking when you decided this guy was going to be good? Just sat in the stand having a joint, it appears, because this guy is dreadful.
Remember, they do serve beer at the stadiums, and that can't get in the way.
Nope, they serve something stronger than beer, because some of the recommended. I mean, I sent my scout out, and I said, right, I want a right back. I want him to be able to throw the ball long, because it's a tactic I like to use. And I want him to be determined, have good work rate, and be basically energetic. I want him to get up the wings. I want him to have good fitness. And my scout came back with a guy who played in about the 9th tier of English football. He was half a star. He had long throws of 3. He was basically about as energetic as me and you, Colin. And it's just like, yeah, good job. You are now sacked. But I want to go on to the search of regions, discussing how we search for regions. Now, you touched on it a little bit, Jonathan, where you said you sent your scouts out and they came back with a feature. Do you want to just go into a bit more detail, if you can, just how you search for regions? Is it all on your scouts, or do you search national teams? How do you go about it?
It's heavily on the scouting network most of the time. Like, I'll send them all out, and then all over the world, pick the different regions, pick the different countries. If there's a country I think is particularly strong with regens, like Argentina and the Netherlands, and the big football countries that produce a lot of really, really high level regens, send them there specifically to have a look around. And then I'll read all the reports that they bring back to me of the recommended players, and then once I've received the look through their reports, I'll then pick the ones out that really suit the formation, the tactics that I'm looking at, and then scout them further, and then if I've decided that they can fit in, or it's a position that I really need, then I'll enter the negotiations and try and get them at the best price possible. But yeah, it's really heavy on the scouting network. Sometimes I will do, like you say, just look through the national teams, look through the under 18s, under 21s of countries like that produce really good footballers consistently, to try and find the ones that I really want, and then send the scouts after specific players. But for the most amount of time, it's the just the big scouting network, send them all over the world to find the really good players.
Now, you just quickly mentioned something there in amongst the scouting. You mentioned about whether they'll fit into your tactic. Now, a lot of people will see the big names. I mean, I'm a big fan of region hunting because I like to get the unknown people in. But a lot of people would like to get the Bales, the Ronaldos, the Messis, and bring them over and tempt them into their club. You mentioned that you like to sign players who fit your tactics. So is that always your aim, or will you sometimes bring in a player because of who he is and kind of build a tactic around him?
No, with Regens, it's always about the tactic and whether they'll fit in. So I don't use attacking midfielders, so there's never any point of me trying to sign an attacking midfielder. I don't play left and right midfielders. Normally they have to be left and right attacking midfielders, so there's no point me trying to sign someone who can only play on the right of midfield, only play on the left of midfield, and don't use wing backs, so there's never any point in me trying to look for them. But if I was to enter into, like, at the beginning of the game, if there's a player available that I know and is really good, then I'll sign him and make the tactic fit to them. But with Regens, it's just fitting them into an existing tactic, especially when you say however many years down the line, 20, 25 years down the line, and you've played with the same tactic almost the entire time. It's not worth trying to mix that up just to fit a really good attacking midfielder or a really good wing back, in my opinion anyway.
No, it's good to hear. It shows you're the boss. The players come in, they play in your tactic, not their tactic. What about yourself, Colin? So, John, just go through how do you look for your regions and stuff, John? I think actually just before you go on, Colin, we were actually speaking before we started. There was some really nice comments on my most recent video, and people were asking how I do my region search and how do I search for young players and stuff. So this is actually a great show to have this discussion on in the exact same week I've been asked about it.
Mm-hmm. So for me, a lot of it is, again, I get the scouts out. I try and get players in. I typically don't do a whole lot during a season. I'll mark a lot of guys in the short list as people to go back to. And then, I'll keep sending guys out, keep looking in regions. And then, if I like somebody, I'll bring them in on a trial or whatever. I'll send scouts back out. But I'm in the same way. I guess I say I'm 90-10 in the same way, in that if I find a system I really want and I really like and it's kind of gelling and clicking, I'll look for players to fit it. That being said, if I can find somebody that I think looks really good on a deal or a steal, I'll think about adjusting what I'm doing to try and figure out how to incorporate them in. If I think they're going to be really fantastic for the level I'm playing at, and I can try and fit a few more pieces to the puzzle around them, I'll adjust what I'm doing to try and get a really high caliber, high quality player into my system.
I think in terms of myself, region and scouting, I think I'm a big fan of the youth leagues, and it is something I never used to do so much, but it's something I've started to look into more. Is like the under-18s leagues for the clubs, the under-21 leagues for the clubs, and just going and see what players are getting good assists, what players are covering a lot of distance, what players are basically doing good things in different aspects. I mean, you might have a player who's getting a lot of assists, but he's quite born idle, so he's not going to fit into my team because I like my wingers to cover defensively. So So I make sure I search for all of them things, and then my scouts are, as I've said, are really, really important. So my scouts are constantly out. I've got 3 scouts at the minute, all I can afford. One of them's looking for hot prospects in the United Kingdom. One of them is in Scandinavia looking for hot prospects, and one of them is in the whole scouting range, and he's looking for first team players who are 4-star of ability or more. So basically, don't come back unless you find someone who's going to be a key player for my squad. Then I think it's all about, are they going to be a key player for the squad? And that comes in more your own decision, not the scout, because you might find your scout recommends someone, but he's not professional, or he's complacent, or he doesn't like marking. For example, his concentration. If his concentration's poor, he's going to end up losing his mana law, he's going to end up messing up, he's not going to be in the right position, you're going to find. And the scouts won't really pick up on that. They'll mention it in the report, but then they'll still tell you this guy's going to be a key player. And it'll turn out he's not. You'll turn out in 6 months he'll have a 6.2 average, you'll want to get rid of him. So you're better off just bite the bullet and just refuse to sign him straight away when you see stuff like that. And apart from the scouting and the checking of the youth leagues, people will have noticed now, I think for the past 3 or 4 years, most of my team's been with me. I'm far too loyal. Some of my players probably are punching 1 division above the weight at the minute, and they probably go and stay with me. I'll just keep kind of going until they retire. I don't know, do you do that a lot, Jonathan? I'm far too loving. I just don't let my players go. It turns out I really should sell them, but I just kind of am too loyal to my team.
I'm loyal to a point. I think if they came through my youth system and they were good enough to get to the first team, because that was a very rare occurrence with Celtic, for all the money we had and all the facilities, it was rare that a player would come from the youth team all the way up into the first team. But when that happened, I was really quite loyal with them. I'm terrible at scouting and finding goalkeepers. It's like the one area of the game that I really struggle with is to really find a good goalkeeper. But luckily in the first season at Celtic, I found a really good one, and he played through 20 years. But when he retired, I promoted from within, so I gave a goalkeeper a chance because my scouts and coaches really recommended him. But he was nowhere near good enough for the sort of level that we were playing at that point, and I just stuck with him for a few years, and there came to a point where it's like the real weakness of that team was just in the goalkeeper, and I had to, bite the bullet, sell him for like a reasonable amount, and then go and find another goalkeeper. But it's definitely a case of sometimes players are outstaying their welcome purely because of a loyalty that you have to wanting to bring a player through yourself and really help him, improve his hometown club. But sometimes it's to the detriment of the rest of the team.
I think it's my goalkeeper's actually a good example. I signed him at the age of about 23. He's now played 200 appearances for FC United, and he's a my assistant who has been with me a few years as well. I quite like him. He's probably not going to leave. He thinks he's only about 1.5 star ability, but my keeper doesn't really make any mistakes. So I keep giving him a new contract. If he's not going to let me down, it's silly to get rid of him, I think. But I kind of want to talk about man management of players and discussing how you train your players and stuff. And I think one of the reasons behind that is I've got a player called Lee Simpson at the minute. I signed him from Boston in season 1, so he's been with me for 6 seasons now. He's just turned 21, I think it is. So I signed him when he was 15. And I genuinely think he's going to be a championship level player when he's fully developed. But I'm playing him on the left wing, and it's all down to man management. Someone asked me, because last season he averaged a 7.4, I think it was. And according to the bar, for example, on the tactic screen column where it says how suitable they are for the position,
right,
it's literally the smallest red sign ever. According to them, he shouldn't play there. Now, his best position is going to be central midfield. He's going to just be a creative genius. But I've got him on the left wing to kind of develop him as a player. He's going to learn a lot playing there. He's tracking back a lot. He's learning a lot defensively. His defensive stats are going up. His attacking stats are going up, which stuff like crossing and dribbling, which wouldn't go up as much if he was playing in the middle. So I'm kind of creating an all-round player a bit more than if I'd just played him in the middle. And it's all down to every 10 or 15 games I'm going in, I'm praising his training, I'm praising his match performances. Every time I praise his match performances, he says, "Oh, thanks, I'm going to continue to improve." The next 5 games, he'll average an 8. So it's all about man management. I don't know about yourself, Jonathan. I mean, how is it in FM13 in general? Because you're playing a game I genuinely can't remember. It's that long ago. I mean, people will know me in terms of my memory. It's shocking. I've played FM since '97, and I can't remember most of them in terms of the mechanics of the game. So, I mean, in FM13, how is your man management of players? Do you focus much on it?
In terms of training, I've my list of coaches. Like, you go on the staff screen and you're just scrolling and scrolling. I have that many coaches. I've go to the board whenever I can and ask for more coaches, because I want to sit in my office and have a cigar and have some, whiskey or something, fine Scottish whiskey. But yeah, in terms of training, I won't do much directly. I'll leave it to them. But in the monthly meetings, the weekly meetings where the coaching staff come and speak to you, I'll read everything that they say, and then they'll say, put someone on a specific training regime. And it's at that point I'll make a decision as to whether it will benefit the overall tactic to put someone on that training regime. So if they want, they want me to train a central midfielder to stick to the right-hand side of the pitch, I'm not going to train him in that, because it'll just lopside the whole tactic. It'll, mess it up to the way that I want it to be. But if they're saying, we think your fullback should close down more, I'll train my fullback to do that, because I think that will be more beneficial to the overall sort of team tactic. In terms of just talking to them, I'll talk to them when they need to be spoken to. If they're falling out of line, if they're not performing well, then I'll go and speak to them. If they've played really well for a long period of time, I'll praise them. But it takes a lot for me to go and praise someone, but it doesn't take much for me to go and criticise them.
I like the advice of obviously checking what your staff are saying, and make sure you think about it if it's going to affect your tactic or not. So that's fantastic. I think people who are listening are going to hopefully take that on board. And what about yourself, Colin, with your minnows of Truro City?
So unfortunately, I don't have the luxury of being able to hang out in my office all day and let the staff take care of it. I dream of those days a lot. So I'm a little more hands-on. I haven't gotten as big into the man management. I think the last season I started a little bit more with the, trying to praise form, criticize form. Praise seems to work better than criticize. I've had a handful of players blow up in my face when I've criticized them. So I've been trying to explore getting more involved with it. I typically follow recommendations unless I have a very specific deal I want to get out of guys. But part of the trouble I'm running into is I don't really have enough coaches. The players are okay, but going out there and trying to fix and train, specific attributes or strengths and things like that, given facilities and the infrastructure, just doesn't really work all that well. So I kind of let training roll a little bit in autopilot and try and get as much as I can sort of managing the tactic.
I think it's fascinating to see the differences in how we handle it, and yet we all, in our own ways, are having success.
The very slight and subtle and intricate differences between Truro City and Celtic.
Yes. One has a cigar, one doesn't.
One has an office, one doesn't.
Yeah, one sits in a shed. I mean, another topic someone asked me, because someone said, I think my average squad age was about 20 maybe last season, maybe 21. And somebody said, do you sign experienced players basically just to kind of help tutor, or just to kind of add experience to the side? And you've got to look at the benefits and the negatives to that. Now, I don't want to give a spoiler, but I've signed a very experienced international, which Colin, you know about. And he is no doubt going to have a lot of experience. He's going to, hopefully, he's going to be able to tutor some people. But I do wonder how detailed behind the scenes football managers, like, does it affect the players at all having an experienced player in the side? I mean, do you think so, Colin?
Given the pace and acceleration of the player you signed, he better do something for you.
That don't be nasty. He's really right. He's marking and tackling stuff all like 18 or 20, but his pace and acceleration are 1 and 2. So as long as he doesn't move, I think he'll do well. He has played. Oh, and by the way, he's a fullback. So, but when he's coming on a backup, and the idea is he just kind of sits there and mops up. The defensive duty of a fullback for me is very defensive, so, and his long throws are 13 or 14, so he can do the job I need him to do. And in the only game he played for the first half, I accidentally had him on support, and they scored 2 goals down their wing.
It's because he was way at the other end of the field when the ball was going by.
I am not joking you. This was just after you had told me, Colin, about the pace. And you made a comment. And I was watching it, and their winger went past him like he wasn't even moving. So, second half, I put him on defend, and he was unbelievable. Every time they tried to go past him, tackled them perfectly. So I genuinely think he'll do alright. In fact, I'm almost considering playing him as a sweeper, because mentally and like technically he's fantastic. He's just physically shot. So I mean, yeah, I mean, looking at experienced players, I mean, you had Avicha, for example, even Jonathan, at the later stages. Did he tutor anybody, or was he obviously too good for that?
Well, I think he'd say he was too good for it, but I think he tutored Matthias Mesnil, who's the player that is apparently better than Avicha. So he tutored him, and you like to think he passed on all his knowledge, which improved Mesnil further. But I think I didn't really keep players around that long. I think I've been at Celtic for 30, 40 seasons, nearly 40, and I think in that time only 5 or 6 players have retired while they're at the club. Other players, once they hit 31, 32, and I can still make some money out of them, got sold on, because I like to have a player in one position and then a younger backup. And when that backup, through training or loans, because I use the loan system a lot to get players, mainly loan them out to other Scottish Premier League sides so they have that sort of experience in Scotland. We just put them into the first team and sell the other one off and make a big profit. So players didn't really tend to stick around and pass on their experience. It was quite a rare thing for that to happen, and I didn't really sign anyone that was over the age of about 22, 23, so they didn't have much scope for improvement really. So there was not that many older players around the squad, which sometimes is quite detrimental to the team's chances. If I'd gutted the team out and a lot of the older players left in one summer, then it could be quite a slog, especially in Europe, to really make inroads.
I quite liked what you said there about loaning them out to clubs in Scotland. Do you find that's effective, loaning them to clubs within the league structure, or even like down the leagues? Do you find they settle more, or is it just something personally you like to do?
It was just a matter of keeping them in Scotland, really, where I could keep more of an eye on them. My scouts didn't have to go that far away. I could, just click on the screen of the results and check how they were all doing. I don't know if it makes that much difference in the game, but it's sort of nice to think that they were getting experience of playing the teams that they would go on to play when they came back to Celtic, playing in the same sort of stadiums, the same sort of environment, hopefully similar tactics. But a lot of the Scottish teams, those players would go on loan there and automatically be their best player, even though they were a young backup at Celtic. So I'd like to think it made a difference, but whether it really did, or it's just in my head, like a lot of the stuff with the Celtic save was, is a different matter.
I think it's interesting. I think it's something I'd actually like to look into more. Maybe actually test a lot with my FC United Manchester as I go up the leagues. Just see about maybe loaning some players maybe to Welsh clubs and English clubs, and just see what difference it makes. See if it does kind of help them settle when they come back. If they play better when they come back, for example. I don't know. As you say, it might just be in our head. But I just want to end by just talking about what are you up to currently? Do you have any plans for FM16? Anything from Avicii thoughts to your thoughts with Football Manager going forward? Obviously, are you planning on just sticking at 13, or do you want to push on with 16, or are you torn still?
Well, I want to see with AFC filed. I think I've thrown myself in the deep end with the new game going at such a low level, the lowest possible on the
best way to be.
The game. Yeah, see how that comes about, because I think I've played 5 or 6 games so far, and I think I've won 2, drawn 2, lost 2. So it's just getting used to it. So hopefully I'll be able to kick on with that and find some time to do that with Avicii. See what happens there. I'd love to write him a whole autobiography, and we'll have to see if that comes about at some point and whether anyone wants to read it. And then with the FM13 game, until that file corrupts, it's going to be there and just hanging around, and it's always going to be there to go back to if I really want to dominate some games and win some matches.
I think, do you know what? Genuinely, an autobiography is something I would absolutely love to read. And I've got to recommend to speak to the Higher Tempo Press and my good friend Chris Darwin, who's the author of Johnny Cooper Championship Manager. With his new publishing company, the High Tempo Press, I'm sure that's something he would love to discuss. I genuinely would read that. It would be awesome. And it would kind of draw you into it's a Football Manager story, and Football Manager books are so much fun to read. I'm sure you'll agree, Colin.
Oh, absolutely.
It kind of draws you in. Once you make you play the game, you read them. I mean, reading Johnny Cooper Championship Manager, I wanted to play Championship Manager. Just as an example, it just draws you in.
I think.
Go on, Colin.
I was gonna say, I think I enjoy them so much because it's exactly this, right? You find a player, you find a club, you find a situation, and okay, yeah, so the point of the game is you're playing matches and trying to win matches and that, but you get yourself so engrossed in becoming a part of the story that playing the game is a lot like playing, it was a lot like reading a book and reading a story. And when you get someone who can capture it really well in the written word, it's so much fun. That's why reading blogs and things like that is such a good time.
Definitely. But I want to thank you for coming on, Jonathan. That's the end of tonight's weekly Football Manager show.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much for having me on.
No, it's our pleasure. As always, Colin.
Always good to be here.
Fantastic. That's what I like to hear. Wouldn't be too good. I'll start the outro music early. Wouldn't be too good if you didn't want to be here.
That'd be weird and uncomfortable for everyone.
Yeah, but now we're all going to sit in silence while I play you out with some lovely music, people.